I'm also a massive sports fan outside of work as well. So I think I bring a lot of that competitive edge. And at the end of the day, sport is essentially another entertainment sector, just like gaming. And I always think, I could work for a bank or an insurance company, but I work for an industry that literally revolves around people having fun.
Welcome to Mobile Heroes Uncensored, episode 22. Wow, we're 20-something, Peggy. It's pretty awesome. My name is John Koetsier. My co-host, of course, is Peggy and Salz, and this is an Origin Stories episode where we go in depth with just one mobile hero. She's interesting. She's a UA expert. She's a growth strategist. And she used to be a journalist. Whoa, near and dear to our heart here, covering rugby. Whoa, cool. Australian football? I don't know. Is that the same thing? Not
Australia,
sure.
not rugby, not the same thing, but close.
It's all good. Peggy, who are we chatting with today?
Well, you said so yourself. One of our tribe, John, a former journalist, right? We have Danica Wilkinson. She's product marketing manager at SocialPoint, originally from Australia. Yeah, we heard it. Yay. And Danica started out as a journalist in Sydney, right, before moving to Spain, where she is currently, and fell into mobile marketing, is how she puts it. Fell into mobile game marketing in 2016. Since then, she's worked at a variety of titles from casual to mid-core, gaining several million downloads for these titles along the way, right? And today, Danica oversees the high-level marketing strategy at SocialPoint for gaming app WordLife. And WordLife, John, if you haven't heard of it, it's a crossword-style game where players can train their brains as they progress through challenging levels, explore features such as weekly events, daily challenges, trivia, and more. And that is who our guest is today.
Wow, very
Thanks for
impressive.
having
I mean,
me.
Australia wasn't nice enough. You had to go to Spain. I mean,
Yeah,
come on.
it's a tough life, but someone's going to do it. So
someone's going to do it, yes.
Welcome, Danica. This is really, really special. As I said off the top, you're a UA expert and you used to be a journalist covering rugby. Obviously, Peggy and I, wow, we're like, this is pretty cool. How on earth did that happen?
Yeah, well, actually, when I was in university, I did a year abroad in Granada, also in southern Spain. And then at some point, I decided to go back and do kind of the typical gap year thing, and I wanted to teach English in Seville. It didn't take me very long to realize that teaching was not my thing. So I found just kind of like a regular office job before applying for a job at a company called Genera Games, which is now known as Genjoy, and it's part of Scopely. So originally my job was just sort of creating content for the social media, for the website, blogs, etc., like things like that. Obviously off the back of my journalism background and also just the fact that I was a native English speaker. So a big dash of luck in that regard. But eventually I kind of started to take on more and more roles and wear more and more hats. And before I knew it, I found myself overseeing the marketing and the launch strategies for a lot of different games. And that's where I've been ever since, basically. Now I'm at SocialPoint, as you know.
Nice.
I love that, John, wearing all the hats. That is really what is the point now in UA as well. We've heard that on our other shows, and there you are, you're proof of it. Come in with all these different talents, and that's what really makes a difference in the end. That is exciting. So I'm going to get to that in a moment, because one of those talents is being a journalist. What did you think that it gave you as a talent set? You brought this to your career in UA and a marketing strategist. What does that bring with it?
I would say probably communication is by far the biggest skill that I've taken from journalism and I've been able to apply to mobile marketing. I think a big part of my job really revolves around communicating marketing strategy to a lot of different stakeholders in the company who aren't necessarily used to or aware of day-to-day practices and metrics and jargon and things like that. So I need to be able to convince them every day of the direction that I'm taking the game in, and basically convince them it's the correct direction. In my role as well, I'm kind of like the puzzle piece between the user acquisition team, the creative marketing art team, the product team, and I have to make sure that the information basically flows through all of those teams so that everybody can understand it and everybody's speaking the same language and they're all on the same page. So I would definitely say communication is is one thing I've been able to bring into it.
It almost makes me think that we could lead strategy at a games company there, Peggy. I think we communicate a little bit, so maybe we could do something like that. I want to ask you about being a gamer. Are you a gamer? And if so, what does that bring to your marketing tactics and strategy?
I mean, I only really dabbled in gaming a little bit before I worked in it. I mean, I think anyone who was a teenage girl in the early 2000s, like myself, went through a phase where they were really obsessed with playing The Sims. That was about the extent of it. So it kind of sounds terrible, but I wouldn't really consider myself a gamer. But I do play a lot. However, unfortunately, I don't have so much fun playing anymore because the whole time I'm just thinking,
It's
I wish
work.
this differently, or oh, that's something cool that we could steal and we can put into our own game. Funnily enough, like you said, I was working in sports journalism, not in rugby. Anyone who knows anything about Aussie rules football would want me to clarify this. Aussie rules football is a different sport, and also normal football like soccer. So I'm also a massive sports fan outside of work as well. So I think I bring a lot of that competitive edge. And at the end of the day, sport is essentially another entertainment sector, just like gaming. And I always think, I could work for a bank or an insurance company, but I work for an industry that literally revolves around people having fun. So what more could I ask for?
I have to respond to that. That's really, really quite cool. It's funny. I heard a marketer the other day, Peggy, say that it was no fun buying anything anymore because he could see through all the tricks that marketers were using. Right?
Yeah.
And you're saying, I play games a lot, but it's not fun. It's work. Hopefully you have some fun.
A little bit.
Good.
What you also do is you share this, as do all mobile heroes. Every mobile hero writes a blog focusing on some idea, some strength, something they're passionate about, right? And yours very aptly was on team alignment, because that's what you say, you're doing it. Your communication skills allow you to bring together these teams. I'd like to just think a little bit more about what motivated you to do that. I mean, team alignment, it's your job, but you also wrote about it. What stimulated that?
Yeah, so to give you kind of the shortened version, but I can go into depth on this later. Basically, what we realized that was, despite everybody having the same aim, which at the end of the day, obviously, was to grow the game profitably, we were all going about it in different ways and basically churning the cogs of different machines, so to speak, rather than all working together and contributing to the same machine. So you had the UA team on the one hand trying to get maximum ROI from their campaigns. You had the product team on the other hand trying to implement new features and trying to improve metrics on their side. And at the same time, you had the marketing art team producing new creatives on an ongoing basis. But despite all of our best intentions, nothing that either team did manage to create that big splash, which is to say a notable and a traceable improvement to metrics either in game or on the marketing side. And one of the reasons behind this, or the main reason behind this, was because probably a bit over a year ago, we found one big creative winner. And everybody who works in mobile marketing knows that you find the big creative winner and everything is golden. And that was our case. We managed to scale up really profitably, really quickly. But then over the course of a year, we were unable to beat this creative winner, and it was rapidly fatiguing. And we just kept replicating the same process that enabled us to find this winner in the first place without any luck. And we came to the conclusion that basically we only found this winner because of luck in the beginning. It wasn't because of any specific process. We just got really lucky. So we took a step back. We realized that the only way to move forward was basically to make a sweeping systemic change. As hard as that is, we had to do it.
I know when you wrote in your blog, and this sounded it just sounded dire. You said, we found ourselves and the team in the dreaded creative rut. That sounds like it's endless, deep, dark, and there's no way out. But you did do it. You did do it. So you talked a little bit about how you solved it, but how did you really solve it?
Yeah, so how we used to work with our creative team in the old process, basically our UAs would take these creatives that they're receiving from the the creative team and test them and then report back to them with some kind of really high level result, like this worked or this failed. And unfortunately, most of the time, the feedback was this failed. And then the artist would basically just go back to the drawing board and try to come up with something else. And the reason behind this was what I just explained, that basically the old winner we found was just by pure luck. And we've just been trying to replicate the same process ever since. And this links back to my previous point about the fact that everybody was working in these different machines. So the creative team were providing creatives to the UA team based on what they thought would work. The UA team were testing these, but they couldn't really understand why these creatives they're receiving didn't actually match up with the hard data that they could see on their end. And we realized that a lot of this hard data was quite inaccessible to the creative team. So obviously they knew the main metrics, things like CTR or IPM and what these things meant. But they couldn't actually understand why these were so important or so impactful, and why they contributed so much to the success of the game. And then on top of that, our business intelligence systems can appear quite daunting to somebody who doesn't work in UA. So what we did was we constructed a dashboard, a really simple, easy to use dashboard with all the main metrics, as well as visual cues that could help artists understand what's working, what's not working, where is the spend going, is the trend of the spend changing as well. And on top of that, we also did a training session for them to understand how it all worked. So now that we've kind of really empowered the artists to not just wait for us to come to them with some kind of feedback about what's working, but to actually go after the information themselves, come up with the decisions themselves. And I think it's much more motivating for everybody across the board that way as well.
I find that super interesting. It happens in every part of business. It happens in mobile marketing. It happens in gaming. You hit on something somehow, and you mentioned it. You said it was luck. Like we struck gold, right? And how do you systematize that? How do you at a lot of levels you just can't, because there's a confluence of factors. There's the right thing at the right time, external factors, all that stuff. But there are some ways of trying to enhance your opportunities to strike gold, to hit it rich. What did you do in terms of creative testing framework? What is that, and what did it help you accomplish?
Yeah, so the creative framework is basically just a name that we gave to this entire rework system. So that covers everything that I just mentioned, but it also covers things like guidelines around where the ideas for the creatives actually come from, how and when creatives are tested, benchmarks, tools for tracking and communicating learnings, meeting agendas. It sounds really simple, but one of the biggest ways this helped us was actually setting specific days of the week for creative production, delivery, testing, analysis, and then the subsequent road mapping. So before, like I said, the artists would just kind of produce these creatives in an ongoing cadence, and then the UAs would test them whenever they received them. And that led to a really ad hoc collaboration between the two teams. So just by the very simple act of making sure everybody knew, okay, this is the day we're getting the creative, this is the day we'll be tested, this is the day we'll get the results, this is the day we'll talk about the results, and this is the day we decide what the next steps are based on those results. We already laid a really strong foundation for one big cross-team machine, which is the word that I'm always using, the big machine, basically.
Lean, mean
Nice.
machine. I love it. I love
it. Well-oiled.
Parrot loves it too, by the way, I think.
Yeah, I know.
Explain the noises in the background.
Yeah, we actually have a few mascots that live here in the SocialPoint office, 3 big Macaws. You can't see them, but you can definitely hear them because I think it might be their feeding time right now. So they're just as excited about creative strategy as I am, as you can tell.
Love it. Love it. I have to follow up, John, because, when you talk about days of the week, I'm wondering, is that just arbitrary days of the week, or is this the thing like we know, for example, in journalism, John, nothing on a Monday, nothing on a Friday, not really, right? Or are these real days that matter? I have to know.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about picking specific days of the week when it comes to, say, testing, for example, is you actually eliminate a lot of variables. So we intentionally will test on the same days of the week because then there's no question about were the results different because we tested on a different day. But it just kind of helps us align our agendas and everything can work around an agenda. We know, okay, so like a Tuesday is the day that we do the sprint alignment. The Wednesday is the day that we start working. The Thursday is the following Thursday is when we receive the creatives and so on and so forth. So it's just a much more structured way to work. And yeah, in that case, the days do matter.
I love that. And I love that you've systematized that. That makes a ton of sense. And clearly it's working extremely well. I have to wonder, maybe there's creative that works on the weekend and you're never testing on the weekend, so you never know. But probably you are still, even just seeing the performance of a campaign, that'll tell you something about the creative in it on the weekend as well as a weekday.
Yeah, well, I mean, in an ideal world, you don't want things to just work on a weekend, but every single day of the week, and preferably for several months at a time.
Yes, that would be nice.
That is very cool. And it shows you, John, there's something to be said for order in the universe.
Really? Really?
Just
I
a
like
little bit,
chaos.
just a little bit. He's a chaos man. Speaking of
We're
chaos,
totally not talking about our production process here during the
not at all, not our long-term relationship. Hell no. But you do say something that's pretty interesting as well on the topic of chaos. You have something that you call wild card creatives. What is that?
So basically, wildcard is a name that we gave to creatives that are not based on hard data. So usually they're based more on intuition or maybe some sort of idea about what we think our audience is going to respond well to. And in our previous process, we actually produced a lot more wildcards. In the same sense as we found that original winner, we just kind of hoped that we stumble across this new big hit and our artists were basically ideating based on what they saw the competition were doing, but then maybe something else. There wasn't really a super defined hypothesis behind it. So now with this new process, we have a very low threshold for wildcards. We make sure that we only ideate around a set of very objective guidelines. This means that everybody's aligned on what makes the cut, what doesn't make the cut. We're not distracted by bias. We're not distracted by gut feelings. That said, it's still important for our artists to be creative. I mean, nobody wants to be put into this box and only produce the same thing over and over again. So when we do have a strong backlog of creative winners, we allow the threshold of wildcards to increase, just so that, the artists get a chance to work on some different things. And also we might unlock some new learnings, whether good or bad, that we might not have gotten otherwise. So one of our kind of defining principles of this strategy is that no matter what we do, we have to take some sort of learning from it, whether it's about what not to do just as much as it's about what we should do.
That's amazing. You've systematized serendipity, which is really, really good. Awesome. That's the title of the episode, Peggy. We got it right there.
That's essentially just mobile marketing. I mean, it's just educated guessing, basically.
But I like it. I was thinking throwing spaghetti on the wall in an orderly fashion, but no, I like serendipity better, actually.
Another one of my favorite analogies, I think I might have put this somewhere, is that it's kind of like paint by numbers. Like, it's very creative. I really enjoy the creative side of it, but everything has its order. You have to match up all the colors with the numbers as well. So I really like that mobile marketing for that reason.
We might disagree on the definition of creativity when you bring paint by numbers into that, but I get your point. It makes a ton of sense. I want to ask about 2021 and the massive changes we've seen in mobile marketing over the past year, particularly in the area of privacy. What's been challenging in this period for you? And has there been anything that's been, hey, it's fine, no worries, it's totally easy?
Yeah, I mean, I would say obviously the biggest challenge has been the loss of granularity when it comes to data on the biggest partners, obviously Facebook and Google. As we just covered, our strategy, right down to the creative strategy, is extremely data driven. And so it's rendered us effectively blind on those partners. And most mobile marketers know that in a company as big as ours, you need to be justifying every single investment decision. And if you don't have the data to back that up, it makes it extremely difficult.
Yes. And yet, through those challenges, there's been a silver lining because you've had some really amazing results. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, on the other hand, we've been really lucky that we have a lot of diversity with the partners that we work with. And thanks to this creative strategy, we've grown a lot of other ad networks and DSPs where we still do get a degree of attribution. We went from having that one very fatigued creative that lasted us a year that I've already mentioned several times to now having, I think in the last 3 months, 6 different concepts and then about 20 different iterations off the back of those concepts that all perform extremely well for us. And as a result of that creative diversity, our ROI has increased 30% in just 3 months. And then on top of that, as kind of the cherry on top, we then also incorporated elements of our best performing creatives into the game's first time user experience, and then also sporadically throughout the game as well. And we managed to increase the retention by a further 25% as a result. So an incredible result, and we're super happy with it.
Wonderful.
That's, John, where you bring in the sound effects of like crowds cheering, champagne popping. That is really incredible, John, because think about, we've done a lot in retention together. And, a single digit, people are like, wow, this is great.
Just 25% of what it was before, but still, it's up quite a few points. So
okay, up a few points. All right. Well, thanks for the clarification. We don't want to get too excited about it. We had someone once who told us, what was it, 99% of all his users stayed or something like that, John, remember?
Yes.
So like, how do you
that
improve
was very interesting. That was a subscription news product. Yes.
Yes, indeed. So we looked back to 2021, and we have to look ahead a bit as well to 2022. What do you think about consumer behavior in mobile? How it's evolving, and how do you foresee that in the year ahead? So now and going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of at this point probably a very tired and cliched answer to kind of say due to the pandemic. But however, it has to be said, due to the pandemic, people's attitudes towards mobile gaming, I believe, has evolved, especially when it comes to our kind of main audience, which is women above the age of 50, who previously they might have seen mobile gaming as something that was for their kids or younger people, but now they kind of see it as a tool for relaxation or a tool to alleviate a lot of the heightened anxiety that a lot of us feel at this time. I also think that people are way more accepting of advertising in games now, both rewarded and also non-rewarded advertising. They just kind of see it as a given, as part of the experience as well.
This is a first for me, Peggy. I have never before interviewed somebody who said that their target market was women over the age of 50 for their game. So that's very cool. I love it. We know the definition of gamer has changed radically over the last decade and pretty much fits anyone with a phone these days. So that is very cool. Danica, this has been a lot of fun. It's been super interesting. You've been super insightful. Want to thank you so much for this time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
I really enjoyed this. I think also learned a lot because it goes over and over again how important it is to have your squad together on the same page. And here we actually had a blueprint for it. So I have to thank you for that one.
You're welcome.
That is really, really, really good. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you are a mobile hero and you need to be on the show as well, hey, you know what? Peggy is on Twitter. I believe I am too. What is this thing? Somewhere on Twitter. Yeah, LinkedIn. We're both there as well. Connect, reach out, chat with us, and hey, maybe you too will be a mobile hero. Thank you again, Danica. This has been amazing. Really appreciate all the insight.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed speaking to you guys.